You talking about the producing side of it reminds me of, and refresh my memory, who's kind of like the producer when the Beatles were together putting that
Glyn
all together.
Johns. Glyn Johns was the guy behind the console that was physically doing the work of recording them, right? So like I said, like the director, right? He's the guy that makes the tweaks. Producers kind of push the bands, maybe say, hey guys, let's try it again.
Have you seen the Peter Jackson Get Back documentary on the Beatles?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I watched it twice.
Okay, so when you're talking about stuff like this,
Yeah.
you're going to be like, there's no way you didn't know about the Beatles. I mean, I knew about the Beatles in terms of the history books, but I just coming around in the 80s, I was just like, that stuff that like my mom listened to, it was just old stuff. And I was just like, I never got into them. I just now started to discover the Beatles.
Yeah.
When that documentary came out. And funny enough, and I talked about this on the last podcast that I had a Beatles fan, Amanda Wirig, on. She's a huge Beatles fan. She's in her own band.
Nice.
And watching that documentary, I tuned in because of Peter Jackson and kind of the behind the scenes of what's going on. And I left and came out of that as a Beatles fan to where I'm like, I need more Beatles stuff.
Yeah.
And you talking about the producing side of it reminds me of, and refresh my memory, who's kind of like the producer when the Beatles were together putting that all together.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if he did all of their stuff, but I know in that documentary, so Glyn Johns was the guy behind the console that was physically doing the work of recording them, right? So like I said, like the director, right? He's the guy that makes the tweaks. Producers kind of push the bands, maybe say, hey guys, let's try it again. A lot of them do that. They push, they try to get the best, whatever it might be. He created what's called the Glyn Johns Method, which is a recording method for recording drums that started with Zeppelin, Beatles, Rolling Stones, where he would use 4 microphones. It's still out there. I mean, if you Google it, Glyn Johns recording method pops up. So I had known him because when I first got started recording drums, I only had 4 mics. And so I'm like, I got to try this thing. It's worked for years. And there's amazing albums that have used 4 mics on a drum set. Now, if you look at studio drumming, I mean, I have 8 microphones, but most probably have 16. I mean, you got mics on everything. And then and the producer's job is to blend it all together the right way, right? But yeah, so when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, that's Glyn Johns. Like, just seeing him work, that was my favorite part of like watching that and just watching them make music, because it's crazy.